Welcome to Bowmore. Nestled off the west coast of Scotland, Islay sits proudly as the southernmost island of the Inner Hebrides. At the heart of this legendary island lies the town of Bowmore. Bowmore is a place unlike any other, shaped by heritage, craftsmanship and personality. Bowmore Distillery is one of the oldest distilleries in Scotland and has stood on the shores of Loch and Doll since 1779. Our close proximity to the mighty Atlantic Ocean is vital in determining the final character of our whisky.
I'm really passionate about Bowmore. My grandfather worked here through the 50s, 60s and 70s, so it's been in our family for a long time. I first started in Bowmore Distillery on the 4th of June 1990. I came at 16 from school. I started off working in the warehouses and I worked my way up to distillery manager in 2012. One of my proudest moments was seeing the Black Bowmore 1964. My grandfather laid that cask down to rest, and it was so proud that I was a distillery manager when that bottle was released.
An unrivalled heritage, soft fresh water from the nearby River Lagan, Scottish barley and the magnificent character of Islay all come together to create the perfectly balanced flavour of Bowmore single malt Scotch whisky. Some of the world's most coveted whiskies have been meticulously matured here, using a process that's been perfected over centuries. Yet each starts with just 3 ingredients: yeast, water and barley. We are one of just a handful of distilleries to still produce our own floor malted barley. For us, this is the best way to control and ensure the finest quality. Our own floor malted barley also contributes ripe, fruity flavours to our whisky. Before germination, the barley is steeped in water from the River Lagan. At almost 8 miles long, the lade which connects the River Lagan to the distillery is one of the longest in Scotland. This fresh water imbues flavours of the famous Islay peat, which influences the richness of the water. The barley is then spread onto our 3 malt floors using malt shovels and left for 24 hours to allow natural heat to build. During this time, the starch in the grain starts to burst free, preparing for the rest of the whisky making process. After this initial 24 hours rest, the barley is laboriously hand-turned every 4 hours by our maltmen, using traditional tools and methods passed down through generations. This reduces the temperature and controls the rate of germination. Depending on the time of year, around 5 to 7 days later, the malt will become what we call green malt and is ready to go to the kiln for drying. 2 peat fires smoulder beneath the large mesh floor of the kiln in order to dry the green malt, halt germination, and add our characteristic subtle smoky flavour. Collected from peat banks just outside the town of Bowmore, we dampen our peat before burning in order to create more smoke than flame. Initially, we keep the temperature of the kiln low, as we only burn peat to impart flavour. The heat and smoke billows up from beneath the kiln floor and filters through the green malt, giving the malt a smoky smell and taste. We then dry the malt using hot air recycled from our unique heat exchange system. Once this process is complete, the malt leaves the kiln and is left to mellow for 4 to 5 days before going to our Porteous 4-roll mill, a beautiful piece of engineering from a bygone era. It was installed in 1966 and has run with very little disruption ever since. The clean grain is ground through 2 sets of rollers, grinding 20 kilograms at a time. The first set cracks open the grain, whilst the bottom rollers, which are more tightly set, grind the grain down to grist. Nothing is wasted from the barley. It all ends up in the mash tun. Mashing is where we finally convert the starchy grain into sugar, which is needed to make alcohol. Our traditional copper kettles hold the water needed for the mashing process. Installed in 1938, they were coal-fired until 1964. To begin, 8 tons of grist is added to the mash tun, where 3 lots of water are passed through at increasingly higher temperatures in order to convert the soluble starches in the grist into sugar. The sugary liquid that is produced is known as wort. The wort drains very slowly through the perforated mash tun floor, which allows only the sweet worts to escape, leaving all the grist behind. The worts are cooled down as they drain, continuing their journey onto the washbacks next door. The spent grist, known as draff, is then sold to local farmers to feed their livestock. Fermentation begins in our 6 sturdy Oregon pine washbacks, each holding 40,000 litres of wort. We find wooden washbacks have benefits over stainless steel, as they give us a good alcohol yield and character in the resulting wash. Yeast is added, and the contents are left to ferment as the yeast feeds on the sugary worts to convert to alcohol. The alcoholic liquid that results is called wash, which is like a strong malty beer with an ABV of around 8%. This liquid is then ready to head to the still house for distillation. Our majestic copper stills were elegantly designed to ensure we create a characterful and timeless spirit perfect for long and slow maturation. Here at Bowmore, we double distill, using both a wash still and the slightly smaller spirit still. During the first distillation, the contents of one washback is split between 2 wash stills. We boil the stills like a kettle, and because alcohol boils at a lower temperature than water, the alcoholic vapour travels up the still into the condenser, leaving the water behind. Liquid is formed when the hot vapour hits the cold condenser. The liquid we collect from the first distillation is called low wines. This passes through the spirit safe to fill the low wines and faints receiver, ready for the second distillation. Everything that comes from the stills must pass through the spirit safe, so the spirit's alcoholic strength can be measured. The low wines are then filled into the 2 smaller spirit stills, ready for the second distillation. During the second distillation, we want to separately collect the best alcohol with the best flavour. This is what we call the heart of the run, or the middle cut, and it is this clear liquid which becomes our final new make spirit. This light and fruity spirit fills our casks, ready to spend the next few years slowly maturing in our number 1 vaults. The head cut, containing the stronger alcohol, and the tail cut, containing the weaker alcohol, are retained and used in the next distillation. The resulting spirit from distillation will come to mature in our warehouses, the most famous of which is our number 1 vaults. It's a place of legend and craftsmanship, of beauty and reflection, and is where some of the most revered Bowmore single malt Scotch whiskies, Black Bowmore, Devil's Cask and Mizunara, to name but a few, have been meticulously matured to perfection. As the world's oldest Scotch maturation warehouse, there's more maturing history within these ancient stone walls than anywhere else in Scotland. The number 1 vaults gives us the perfect environment for maturing whisky, keeping a consistently cool temperature and protecting some of the most coveted whiskies from the pounding waves of the Atlantic Ocean. The selection of casks has a profound effect on a whisky. For our distillers, it's vital that the wood enhances the harmonious blend of each rich ingredient. Each cask will transform the liquid inside, creating a whisky that can only be truly appreciated by pausing for a moment in time to savour the unique nuances. The craftsmanship, respect for tradition, and a touch of alchemy all come together to create the warm, subtle, and smoky spirit of Bowmore whisky.
We simply see ourselves as caretakers of the Bowmore spirit, here for just a moment in time, safeguarding centuries of tradition, ready for the next generation to uncover the depth of our story.